name is Lucianne Latu. I'm Tongan and I'm 31 years old and I'm a cancer survivor. I was asked to share my story about when I had cancer when I was 8 years old. In 1987, I was diagnosed with osteogenic sarcoma, which in English is bone cancer. It was a very difficult time during that era because it was very rare for bone cancer to be found, and when it was found, it was usually too late. The way it was found in my case was I was a bit of a tomboy when I was growing up, and so I was always monkeying around, climbing up trees, riding bicycles, wrestling with the boys, all that good stuff. And one day my mom saw me limping around and asked me what was going on. She asked if I'd fallen out of a tree, which I've been known to do. She asked me if I fell off my bike, which I've also been known to do, along with the other 20 million questions that she asked me, and I said no to all of them. This was on a Saturday, and so she decided on a Monday that we were going to go to the hospital. Now, what makes my story a little bit different was that this was all happening in the island of Tongan. And in Tongan, medical technology was very, very limited. In fact, most of the stuff, anything that went past, the regular IVs and a regular standard x-ray was sent overseas, mainly to New Zealand, but sometimes to Australia, depending on the needs of the individual. So we went and they did an x-ray of my right leg and found a tumor or a mass that was the size of a tennis ball. Unfortunately, they didn't have the medical capabilities of doing a biopsy, so immediately, due to the size of the tumor, they decided that I need to be flown overseas. Originally, my mom's decision was to come back to the United States. Unfortunately, at that time, there's only one flight a week, and the doctors were afraid to have me sit and wait for that long. So they sent me to New Zealand, and in New Zealand, they had an excellent program there between the government of Tonga and New Zealand. And what they did was they did a biopsy, which is where they found out that I had bone cancer. After that, it was followed by 3 months of chemotherapy trying to either decrease or slow down the growth of the tumor. Unfortunately, none of that happened, and the only two options were to continue on with chemotherapy, a lot more vigorous, a lot more aggressive of a treatment plan, or to amputate my leg. My mom's the one that made the decision, because I was only 8 years old, to amputate my right leg because the prognosis was that I'd have a better chance of survival. So in March of '87, they amputated my right leg and continued on with about 9 months more of chemotherapy, just to make sure that nothing had spread and they had gotten everything. Of course, if you're familiar with any of the cancer survivors or cancer, or if you had cancer, it's that you lose all your hair. And I was nicknamed in the oncology pediatrics ward as Casper the Friendly Ghost, because I was pale as a white sheet, but hardly ever complained, was very quiet, and suffered in silence, pretty much. I never complained about anything, so that's what I was dubbed as. Growing up after the chemo and everything, it was definitely hard. As we all know, kids can be cruel or brutally honest, and a lot of kids around my age and that surrounded me were brutally honest. There was a lot of touch and go situations in regards to my depression. I was feeling less than, inadequate, that constant judgment by not only myself but by others that I felt. Throughout high school, that was also a difficult and challenging time, as we all know, because that's where we're trying to figure ourselves out. And although I would never exchange any of the hardships that I went through because it's made me the person that I am today, it was definitely hard. I wish I had had more people around me that had gone through what I went through. And I'm not saying that they probably weren't there, they just weren't easily accessible to me and my family, in the sense that we didn't know how to get them. We didn't know how to find other survivors, especially like ones that were as young as me and growing up throughout high school. I had all my friends, but they never really understood that it took me longer, you know, like I had to get up in the morning and I had to jump to the bathroom, and that it took me a little bit longer because I had to put on a leg. A lot of them didn't understand why there's some things I couldn't do, like go roller skating or go running, you know. And I wish I'd had that special group of friends that could really say, I know exactly what you're going through. I wish I had also really taken advantage of the social workers, in the sense that they were there to talk to me so I could let out all my feelings. And I think the hard thing is being a Tongan and then being Tongan American, I was brought up to be like, oh, nothing can faze us, we're strong people, we can get through anything, life is what it is, you just gotta keep pushing on. And it's true, we are strong people, but at the same time, I'm also human. And I had a very hard time with adjusting from that, you know, and having to go through all that stigma, especially with a physical disability, a physical limitation. And, you know, my Pacific Islanders, we can be probably the harshest on ourselves, you know, and we love each other desperately, but at the same time we can be very critical of each other with if there's any certain limitations, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. And for us, we think, you know, reverse psychology works, and unfortunately for me, it didn't work. You know, feed me with enough negativity and I started to believe it too. But I really, really do wish that I had done the grieving process, because I know when I was going through treatment after they amputated my right leg, they tried to start me on the grieving process, which is the acceptance, the anger, I forgot, there's like 5 steps of grieving. And I, being prideful and probably being only 8 years old, didn't understand the importance of going through this grieving process. So since then, it's taken me this long, probably up until I was like 27, and I'm 31 now, to go through that grieving process. Because I was my worst critic. I was embarrassed about the way I looked. I was embarrassed about the fact that I had one leg, but you would never know it because I always had a smile. But deep down inside, I was crying. And I share my story now because I want any cancer survivor or anyone that's going through cancers, where you're not alone. It may seem like it's it's just you going through it, and it felt like that too, but we're not alone. There's others of us out there that have survived, have made it through, and are on the other side and saying, yeah, we can do it. And I'm not saying it's easy. It's definitely been a challenge, and my family can definitely vouch for it. But as Pacific Islanders, who are strong, prideful, loving and caring people, and we can make it through because we don't go through it by ourselves. We have our family, and whenever we fall, they're right there to pick us up. And so I'm saying, reach out. There's help out there. There's counseling. There's me. There's other people like myself and like you that would be willing to share their story and to talk about feelings and all that. Thank you.